May, June 2024, paper 1, variant 2. Question 1. 4 athletes run twice around the track. The table shows their times and at the end of each lap, which athlete runs the second lap the fastest. Again, which athlete runs the second lap the fastest? How can I find the speed or the time of the second lap alone? The time of the second lap alone. All you need to do is what? Subtract. Okay. A lot of you would just go for the least time, which is B, which would be wrong. Why? Because this is the time of this at the end of the second lap. It's the time at the end of the second lap, which is wrong. Which is the time of the 2 laps. We only want the time of the second lap. How can I find the time of the second lap? Subtract 47.04. Okay, 47.04 minus 22.99. The time of the second lap would be 24.05. So this is for A. What about for B? 47 minus 23.04, which is 23.96. 23.96. 47.18 minus 23.16. 23.16. This is 24.02. 24.02 and 47.24 minus 23.39. This is 23.85. 23.85. So definitely D 85. Okay, D would be the least time for the second lap. Question 2a. Racing car is fitted with an onboard computer. Which set of data shows the car increasing in speed? Increasing in speed. Speed equals distance over time. So basically we want to find an increasing distance. In A, moved 100 meters in the first second and then 100 meters in the second. So this is a constant speed. What about in B? 90 and 90. So again, constant speed. In C, it was 80 and then 110. 80 and so this increased. The speed has increased, and therefore it's C. What about D? No, D is wrong. Why? Because 100 and then 80. This is decreasing speed. The speed is decreasing. Which row shows the gravitational field strength on Earth and the definition of velocity? Gravitational field strength would be 9.8. Is it newtons per kilogram or kilograms per newton? Yes, it is newtons per kilogram. Definition of velocity, it is the speed in a given direction, so it is D. Which statement about the weight of an object is correct? The weight of an object is the gravitational force on an object. Gravitational force on an object. Diagram shows a load extension graph for a steel spring. The length of the spring with no load attached is 2 centimeters. Which load increases the length of the spring to 6 centimeters? Which load increases the length to 6? So basically it was 2 and then it became 6. So to find the extension, 6 minus 2, it's 4 centimeters. On the graph, we need to find the load that will give an extension of 4 centimeters. 4 centimeters is here, so we need to draw a vertical line. And then from this point, draw another horizontal line, which would give you a load of 1 Newton. Only 1 Newton. Again, all you need to do is find the extension of the spring. Find the extension of the spring, 6 minus 2 is 4. Which force between two solid surfaces opposes motion? Yes, it is friction. A mass of 2 kilograms and a weight of 20 is carried to the top of some stairs. How is work done against gravity? Against gravity, so basically you need to lift the box upwards. You need to lift the box up. So do I need the 1.8 distance? No, I do not need the 1.8 distance. I actually need the 1.2. Right? Work done is force times distance. Force times distance. Not mass times distance. We need force, which is the weight, times the upward distance. The vertical distance, 20 times 1.2. 20 times 1.2. 4 submarines are submerged. The density of fresh water is 1000 and the seawater is 1020. Which submarine experiences the greatest pressure? The greatest pressure would be if I increase the depth below the surface and if I increase the density. You need to increase the depth and you need to increase the density so it is D. Why? Because seawater is more dense than fresh water. Diagram shows the changes in state. What are processes 2 and 3? 2, from gas to liquid, condensation. 3, from solid to liquid, melting. Copper has a melting point of 1100 degrees Celsius. What is the melting point in Kelvin? Basically, Kelvin equals degrees Celsius plus 273. We need to add 1100 plus 273, which would be 1373 degrees Kelvin. A liquid at room temperature fills a flask and a glass tube to level X. The flask is placed in ice and the liquid in the level changes to level Y. So it moves from X to Y. Why? Why does it move from X to Y? That's because the liquid itself contracts. Because the liquid itself contracts. When it gets colder, it will contract, the volume will decrease, and therefore it will fall from X to Y. Which row correctly describes the state of water at the temperatures shown? These temperatures are in Kelvin. How can I change from Kelvin to Celsius? Celsius equals Kelvin minus 273. So 250 minus 273 is what? Is negative 23. This is actually negative 23 degrees Celsius. 300 minus 273 is what? Is 27 degrees Celsius. 350 minus 273 is what? Is 77 degrees Celsius. And then 400 minus 273 is what? Is 127 degrees Celsius, which is quite obvious that at 250 degrees Kelvin it was a solid, 77 it was a liquid, and then 400 it was a gas. Liquid is evaporating, it's not boiling. Which statement about the liquid at an instant in time is correct? If it is evaporating, what happens during the evaporation? As only molecules with enough energy can escape from the surface. Evaporation. A student stirs a hot liquid with a spoon. Which row explains which material the spoon should be? Would it be better to use a metal spoon or a wood spoon? Yes, a wood spoon would be better. Why? Because it's a good insulator. Thermal radiation is emitted from all objects. Which mediums can thermal radiation travel through? Thermal radiation can it travel through? But it can travel through glass, yes. Water, definitely. Air, vacuum. It's the only type of heat transfer that can travel through the vacuum. So A is correct. The radius of a circular pond is 3 meters. Circular waves are made at the center of the pond. There are 10 whole waves between the center and the edge, and it takes 5 seconds for 10 waves to reach the edge. What is the wavelength and the frequency of the waves? How can I find the wavelength of this wave? So basically you have a pond which is 3 meters in radius. This is the radius of the pond. How many waves have formed in this radius? How many waves have formed inside this pond? 10 waves. So if I draw 10 waves, 10 circular waves, okay? 10 of these waves. Let's assume that I've drawn 10 waves. Just an assumption. What would the difference between two wavefronts be? The wavelength. What would the wavelength be if you draw 10 waves in a radius of 3 meters? In a radius of 3 meters, what would the wavelength be? The wavelength would be 3 divided by 10, which is 0.3. Why? Because you've got 10 waves in a distance of 3 meters. So you divided the total distance divided by the number of waves, which is 0.3 meters. This is the wavelength. What about the frequency? The frequency, well, that's quite easy. You have the what? How do What is the definition of the frequency? The number of waves per unit time, or the number of waves divided by the time. You have 10 waves and you have the time, 5 seconds, so 10 divided by 5, which is 2 seconds, which is B. Okay? How does the direction of vibration of a longitudinal wave compare to its direction of propagation? A longitudinal wave, how does it move? It moves parallel. It moves parallel. Wave example, ultrasound or ultraviolet. Hmm. Sound wave. It is a sound wave, a parallel wave, a longitudinal wave. Question 18. Diagram shows a ray of light reflecting on a mirror. Which row shows the correct names for X, Y, and Z? X, angle of incidence, Y, angle of reflection, and Z is the normal line. Converging lens forms an image. What are the characteristics of this image? It's quite obvious that it is inverted. So if you've got an inverted image, it has to be a real image as well. And in this case, the image is diminished. It is smaller than the object. Question 20. White light can be split into different colors by passing it through a prism. What is the name of this process when it passes through a prism and it splits into different colors? This is called dispersion. Which regions cause mutation of cells in the body, skin burns, and internal heating of the body cells? The mutation of the cells would be caused by the X-rays, yes, skin burns by the infrared, and the internal body heating by the microwaves. Question 22. A pulse of sound is produced at the bottom of a boat. The sound travels through water and is... Okay, so it hits the shoal of fish and it reaches the boat 1.2 seconds. Again, the speed is 1,500. When it hits the boat again, this means that this is an echo. This is an echo. So speed equals 2 distance over time. Speed equals 2 distance over time if it is an echo. If it is an echo. Can I find the distance? Yes, the distance would be the speed, velocity or speed. You can write it down as S or V times the time divided by 2. Speed times time over to 1,500 times 1.2 divided by 2, which is 900 meters. Frequency of a sound wave increases from 31,000 to 32,000. What is the nature of the wave and how does it sound to a human with normal hearing? 31 and 32,000 hertz. This means that it is a longitudinal wave. This is an ultrasound wave which cannot be heard by a normal human being. Small compasses are used to determine the direction of a magnetic field. Which diagram shows the direction that the compass needles point when placed near the North and South Pole? If it's near the South Pole, would it point away? No, it would actually point towards the South Pole. And near the North Pole, it would point away from the North Pole. Why? Because you've got the magnetic field. It's moving out of the North Pole and into the South Pole. So it is C. A metal bar is placed inside a current carrying coil. There is a small current in the coil. When there is no current, the nails drop off. So if you have a current, you've got a few nails attached to the coil. If you've got no current, all of the nails drop off, meaning that this is an electromagnet. This is an electromagnet. Electromagnet should be made of soft iron. If you increase the current, does it make no difference? Actually, no. It holds more nails, creates a stronger magnetic field. Question 26. Which equation gives the power? Power equals IV or VI. Power equals IV, current times the voltage or the potential difference. Soon tests the electrical conduction of 4 materials. Which materials are good conductors? Aluminum, iron, and silver. Plastic is not a good conductor. I'm sorry, it is A. Aluminum, iron, and silver. The question about this question is about the potential difference across and the current in a variable resistor. This question might be a bit tricky. Let's read it quite carefully. The resistance of the variable resistor is increased. The resistance is increased. This is a fact. He said that we have increased the resistance in this variable resistor. Which statement is correct? The current can remain constant. The current can remain constant. The potential difference can remain constant. Or so let's check out the answers. The current can remain constant if the potential difference is decreased. How can I find the current? I equals V over R, right? If I want the current to remain constant, if you want the current to remain constant, what should you do? What should you do? You should, no, if you want the current to remain constant and you have the resistance, and the resistance has increased, and the resistance has increased, can you decrease the voltage or should you increase the voltage? You should increase. How so? Why should I increase the voltage? For example, if the current is, let's say, 10 over 2, which is 5 amperes, right? Now, the resistance has increased. The resistance has increased. It has become 4 ohms. So the voltage has to be 20 to keep the current constant, 5 amperes. Okay? You need to increase the potential difference. You need to increase the potential difference if you increase the resistance to keep the current constant. So it is B. It is B. Okay? C and D are wrong. So now we proved A to be wrong. The potential difference can remain constant, which is V equals IR. V equals IR. When the resistance increases, if you want the voltage to remain constant, then you need to decrease the current. You need to decrease the current. The current cannot be kept constant and it cannot be increased. Okay, the only correct answer is B. Diagram 1 shows one resistor. Diagram 2 shows 2 resistors in parallel. What is the combination of resistance in diagram 2? Parallel resistors. What happens to parallel resistors? The resistance decreases less than the circuit, okay, in diagram 1, but greater than 0. Less than 1 resistor. Where must the fuse be connected in the mains electric circuit? The fuse must be connected on the live wire only. The fuse, the switch, okay, they all must be connected on the live wire only. Which graph does not show the correct trend for the force causing the turning effect on the coil? Basically, you want to see now this is the force, the rotation, okay, the speed of rotation of the coil. What are the 3 factors that affect the speed of rotation of the coil? What are the 3 factors that increase the speed of rotation of any motor? You have the number of coils, the current, and the magnetic field. The weight, does it affect it? No, it does not affect it. Therefore, this is the wrong answer. Does not show the correct. This is the wrong answer, D. Which statement about the structure of an atom is correct? Atom, positive electrons. No, definitely we do not have positive. Negative electrons surround a positive nucleus. Negative electrons surround a positive nucleus. 4 statements about the isotopes of certain elements are listed. Which statement about the isotope must be correct? Isotope. Do they have to be radioactive? Do they have to be unstable? Do they have the same number of neutrons? No. They have the same number of protons. Isotopes. 34. What makes a contribution to a person's annual dose of ionization radiation? What's ionization radiation? Basically, this is the background radiation. Okay, the background radiation, which is radiation from natural sources around us. From natural sources around us. This is unnatural, unnatural, and unnatural. The only natural source of background radiation would be food and drink. The emissions from radioactive source pass through a sheet of lead. Pass through a sheet of lead. That is 10 millimeters thick. Which type of radiation is emitted from the source and how is the radiation affected by an electric field. Okay, so which radiation would pass through a sheet of lead? A thin sheet of lead. A thin sheet. Would alpha be able to pass through? No. Gamma would only be able to pass through a thin sheet of lead. What about when gamma is passing through an electric field? What is an electric field? For example, you have a positive plate on this side, and then you have a negative plate on the other side. So this is an electric field. Is gamma affected by an electric field? Would gamma be affected by an electric field? Actually not. Why? Because gamma is neither positive or negative. Gamma has no ionization effect. Once gamma passes through an electric field, it will pass through undeflected. This is the gamma radiation. If you had an alpha particle, it would be attracted to the negative plate. If you had a beta particle, it would be attracted to the positive plate. So basically, the gamma is not deflected. Radioactive waste is often mixed with liquid glass. The mixture solidifies and is stored in steel drums. Why is the purpose? Why is the purpose? I'm sorry. Why is the process used to store radioactive waste? Hmm. Why? Why do we store the radioactive waste this way? Because, yes, it is contained in a solid block so that it cannot leak out. Cannot leak out. This whole steel drum and the mixture solidifies, so therefore it cannot leak out easily. Which planet is classified as a rocky planet? Hmm. No, no, no. Only Venus. What causes the phases of the moon? The phases of the moon, the movement of the moon around the Earth. What makes up a universe? What makes up the universe? Billions of galaxies. We have hundreds. Okay, we have hundreds of billions of galaxies. The sun mostly consists of which gas? It mostly consists of helium and hydrogen.